Assalamualaikum and good morning to everyone. So we are from Lab 9. We'll be presenting on the factors affecting attention span among preclinical medical students in UKM. These are the list of our facilitators and group members. As for the introduction, the attention span is defined as the amount of concentrated time one can spend on a task without being distracted. And this is taken from Komish et al. At 2009. The problem statement, the attention span among students is often related with the duration of a student can stay focused in the class or lecture. The research justification is that although there are many different meanings of attention, in this context, we specifically concerned with the student's ability to concentrate in class, factors that can affect the student's attention span, and how can we use our knowledge of these factors to help the students. The main objective is that we would like to determine the prevalence and the factors affecting attention span of preclinical UKM medical students. And the specific objectives are to determine the association between gender and attention span. Next, to determine the association between BMI and attention span. Next, to determine the association between sleeping duration and attention span. And also to determine the association between caffeine intake and attention span among preclinical medical students in UKM. Research hypothesis. For the research hypothesis, the first hypothesis that we come out is there is association between gender and attention span among preclinical UKM medical students. Second, there is association between BMI and attention span among preclinical medical students in UKM. The third hypothesis is there is association between sleeping duration and attention span among preclinical medical students in UKM. And the fourth hypothesis is there is association between caffeine intake and attention span among preclinical medical students in UKM. So we have come out with a conceptual framework which include the four factors, caffeine intake, gender, BMI, and sleeping duration, to see their association with the outcome of attention span, whether it is good or poor. So let's move on to the methodology. Firstly, the study design that we used is cross-sectional study. The target population is the preclinical UKM medical students, which involve the first and second year medical students. The sample size include 104 students. Our sampling frame is the list of preclinical UKM medical students. Our sampling unit is the preclinical UKM medical students, and our sample method, we use simple random sampling. The study tool that we use in this research is questionnaire. We've distributed the questionnaires via Google Forms, and the questionnaire is divided into 3 sections, which include the section A, respondents' background, section B, the caffeine intake, and the section C, which include the attention span questionnaire. These are the variables that we use in this research. The independent variables are gender, BMI, sleeping duration, and caffeine intake. And all of these variables used are qualitative variables. And for the dependent variables, we use attention span, and the measurement is poor or good. Now let's move on to the data analysis. The data are analyzed by using Statistical Package for Social Sciences, SPSS, and all the independent variables are qualitative variables. Thus, Pearson chi-square correlation coefficient are used to determine the relationship between the independent variables and the attention span. Descriptive result. The first variable, gender. Descriptive analysis of the demographic data, particularly gender, of the respondents indicated that the majority 74% of respondents were females and the minority 26% were males. Second variable, BMI. Majority 79% of the respondents had normal BMI, while the minorities 21% of the respondents were overweight. Third variable, daily sleeping duration. Majority 61% of the respondents sleep less than 6 hours per day, while the minority 39% sleeps more than 6 hours per day. Fourth variable, caffeine intake. Slightly more than half of the respondents, 55%, did not take any caffeinated drinks, while the remaining 45% took caffeinated drinks. Fifth variable, attention span. Majority 70% of the respondents resulted good in attention span, while the minority 30% of the respondents gave poor results in attention span. Bivariate result. Bivariate analysis identifies the relationship between two variables. Based on our bivariate results, the p-value for gender is 0.608, which is more than 0.05, which indicates the null hypothesis is not rejected. Therefore, there's no significant correlation between gender and attention span of the respondents. Next, the p-value for BMI is 0.449, which is also more than 0.05, and this means that the null hypothesis is not rejected. Therefore, there's no significant correlation between BMI and the attention span of respondents. Next, the p-value for sleeping duration is 0.923, which is more than 0.05, and this means that the null hypothesis is also not rejected. Therefore, there's no significant correlation between daily sleeping duration and attention span of the respondents. And lastly, the p-value for caffeine intake is 0.997, which is more than 0.05, which means that the null hypothesis is not rejected. In relation to this, the correlation coefficient analysis indicate a non-significant correlation between caffeine intake by respondents and the attention span of the respondents. Discussion. A bigger amygdala may also explain why boys and young men need to move around more while learning compared to girls and young women, who tend to have a longer attention span. However, study findings indicated gender is not significantly associated with attention span. Previous studies has also found that obese students have a shorter attention span than those who are normal. But study findings indicated that BMI is not significantly associated with attention span. Moreover, as stated in previous studies' findings, daily sleeping duration of students can also affect their attention span. Yet, study findings indicated a non-significant association between daily sleeping duration and attention span. A recent study concluded that there's a relationship between caffeine intake by students and their attention span. However, study findings cannot be concluded as the same as the recent study because the study findings showed caffeine intake is not significantly associated with attention span. All factors studied are not significantly associated with attention span. Thus, this study cannot further validate these observations and support the research hypothesis. The limitation of our study is that we have small sample size. And as for the conclusion, there is no significant association between the independent variables with the attention span of preclinical UKM medical students. Recommendations for a better result in the same study are: bigger sample size is needed for the same research in the future study, and this must include other factors, the confounders, that may influence attention span in the future study. With that, we would like to thank Prof. Dr. Azmi Muhammad Tamil as our Medicine and Society Module Coordinator, and of course, our beloved facilitators, Dr. Asma and Dr. Humadevi, for helping us throughout this research. Indeed, it's an honor to have both of you in our group. Last but not least, to all the participants who involved in our research. So these are our references. Thank you.